When Julius Caesar was born in 102 BC, Rome already dominated the Mediterranean world. The Roman Republic stretched from the city of Rome deep into northern Europe, southward to the deserts of Libya, and east through Palestine into Mesopotamia. Lands once conquered by Alexander the Great 2 centuries earlier were steadily being absorbed into Rome's expanding sphere of control. To Roman observers, their power now reached what they proudly described as the ends of the earth. Caesar was born during the 5th month of the Roman calendar, known as Quintilius, and was named Gaius Julius Caesar. He belonged to one of the most ancient and distinguished families in Roman history. The Julian clan traced its lineage to Iulus, the son of Aeneas, the Trojan hero later immortalized in Virgil's Aeneid. According to Roman tradition, Aeneas, himself descended from the goddess Venus, had founded the Roman people. Through this lineage, Caesar inherited a pedigree that linked him directly to Rome's heroic and divine past. Throughout the Republic's history, members of the Julian family had held wealth, prestige, and high political office. They had served as consuls, tribunes, praetors, and even dictators from Rome's earliest years. Caesar therefore entered the world with all the advantages of elite birth and none of its limitations. As the son of such a family, he received an excellent education, beginning in childhood with instruction in traditional Roman virtues: discipline, simplicity, devotion to the state, and reverence for the gods. As he matured, his studies expanded to include Latin and Greek grammar, rhetoric, and philosophy, as well as arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and possibly music. This education was not intended to train him for a profession, but to prepare him for public life and the preservation of his family's honor. Upon completing his formal education, Caesar entered public life through the Cursus Honorum, the traditional sequence of political offices through which Roman statesmen advanced. While noble birth could open doors, success along this path required ambition, talent, and achievement. At just 15 years old, Caesar received his first major appointment when, through the influence of his uncle Gaius Marius, one of Rome's most powerful generals and politicians, he was named High Priest of Jupiter. At the time, Rome was riven by intense political conflict. Marius struggled for dominance against rivals who represented the entrenched aristocracy. Roman politics had hardened into 2 broad factions: the populares, who claimed to champion the common people, and the optimates, who defended senatorial authority and aristocratic privilege. Caesar's alignment with Marius and the populares placed him in grave danger when Marius died and Lucius Cornelius Sulla seized power. He stripped Caesar of his priesthood and forced him into exile. Rather than submit, Caesar entered military service, demonstrating early resilience and determination. After Sulla's death in 78 BC, renewed instability allowed Caesar to return to Rome. The following year, while traveling to Rhodes to study rhetoric under the famed Greek teacher Apollonius Molon, Caesar was captured by pirates. According to the biographers Suetonius and Plutarch, Caesar reacted with characteristic confidence. He mocked his captors for undervaluing him, persuaded them to demand a higher ransom, and promised, half joking, half serious, that he would crucify them after his release. Once freed, he fulfilled that promise, returning with a fleet, capturing the pirates and ordering their execution. While Caesar was away, the populares regained influence in Rome. In 70 BC, Pompey and Crassus, both associated with the faction, were elected consuls. Pompey initially appeared to be the dominant figure, but his prolonged absence on eastern military campaigns created an opening for Caesar. Recognizing that rivalry would weaken them all, Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus formed a political alliance known as the First Triumvirate, an informal rule of 3 men. With their combined support, Caesar was elected consul in 59 BC. After his consulship, Caesar received command of Gaul. Over the next decade, he conquered the region through a series of brilliant campaigns, completed by 50 BC. He forged an army fiercely loyal to him and secured widespread fame by writing a vivid account of his victories, one of the most influential works in Roman literature. During this period, Crassus was killed in battle, and the alliance began to weaken. Pompey, growing jealous of Caesar's success and politically isolated after the death of his wife Julia, Caesar's daughter, abandoned the triumvirate and joined the Optimates. The Senate, now aligned with Pompey, ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome. Compliance would have exposed him to prosecution once he lost the legal protections of office. Instead, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with a single legion, a deliberate act of rebellion that declared civil war. Pompey fled Rome, and Caesar defeated his former ally in a series of decisive battles, emerging as the undisputed master of the Roman world. Pompey fled to Egypt, believing he would find refuge there. Instead, he was assassinated upon landing by Egyptian officials seeking to win Caesar's favor. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria, he was presented with Pompey's severed head. Rather than rejoice, Caesar was appalled. He ensured Pompey received a proper burial, outraged that foreigners had executed a Roman consul without trial, angered that reconciliation was no longer possible, and affected personally by the death of a family connection and former ally. Although the Republic still existed in name, power now rested entirely in Caesar's hands. Rather than pursue vengeance, he adopted a policy of clemency, pardoning many former enemies, including Marcus Junius Brutus, whom he treated with honor. Yet Rome's fear of monarchy ran deep. Since the overthrow of its kings in 509 BC, Romans believed unchecked power led inevitably to tyranny. Despite this tradition, Caesar accumulated authority through a series of dictatorships. While the office itself was ancient, it had long been dormant and traditionally limited to 6 months. Caesar's first dictatorship in 49 BC lasted only 11 days and was relatively uncontroversial. His second, lasting a year, marked a significant departure from precedent. In 46 BC, he was appointed dictator for 10 years, and in February of 44 BC, he was named dictator for life, convincing many Romans that he intended to rule as king. As dictator, Caesar enacted sweeping reforms. He expanded the Senate and filled it with loyal supporters, reformed laws, curbed corruption, addressed economic instability, resettled veterans, extended citizenship, strengthened the military, and introduced the Julian calendar, a system so effective it endured for over 15 centuries. Yet his accumulation of honors and disregard for republican customs alarmed many senators. He accepted titles, icons, and privileges traditionally reserved for kings and gods, allowed his image on coins, wore royal dress, and ruled more openly as a Hellenistic monarch. The moment that convinced many of his intentions came during the festival of Lupercalia, when Mark Antony publicly offered him a crown. As ominous warnings multiplied, Caesar ignored them. On March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March, he entered the Senate and was assassinated by a group of senators led by Cassius and Brutus, the very man he had spared. Tradition records his final words upon seeing Brutus. "And you, my son." In death, Caesar made one final break with tradition. In his will, he left money to every Roman citizen and adopted his great-nephew Octavian as his son, granting him most of his estate. Octavian was only 18 and little known, but history would transform him into Augustus, Rome's first emperor. Thus ended Julius Caesar's rise through the Cursus Honorum. He fell not to foreign enemies, but to former allies. His assassination marked the effective end of the Roman Republic and cleared the path for the Roman Empire. A brilliant leader whose mercy proved fatal, Caesar reshaped the course of history forever.